A doom metal album of a game, a spiked flail to the face. Rules light and heavy everything else. This is Mörk Borg.
Finny and DG lead the way. New RPG systems every day. Dice roll quick adventure calls. Walking through tabletop's golden halls. Masters of pen and paper. RPGs of every flavor. Talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through. New, old, and interesting. Thank you all for listening.
All right, so Mörk Borg.
Mörk Borg.
Yeah.
Not Mörk Borg. We're Canadian. It's pronounced Mörk Borg. It is Swedish.
Swedish, yes.
But I don't think anyone's gonna really get mad at you if you said Mörk. You'll catch the internet ire likely if you say it that way. So you know someone's gonna be like, actually it's pronounced Mörk Borg.
You know, I'm not sure you would, because I feel like well over 50% of people that play this game call it Mörk Borg, even though
That is true.
it is supposed to be pronounced Mörk Borg.
Mörk Borg.
I don't know any Swedish. I apologize. Mörk Borg. We are hitting up another D20 system this round.
Shocker.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. A lot people look, when I think tabletop gaming, I think D20, right? It's just where I go. I know there's games that don't use D20, right?
Yeah.
You've got your Warhammer, your like tabletop army style games that don't really do a lot of D20. But I mean, I just, there's something about rolling that D20. It just feels magical.
We're gonna touch on Warhammer at a later episode, but
That's down the road.
because that analogy wasn't quite right, because that's miniature gaming, and
I tried. It was the first thing that came to mind that didn't use a D20, right? It was Warhammer.
Traveler uses
Traveler
D6s.
does it. Yeah, that's right. That's
But yes, a very common system again. You roll the D20 against a target. You roll higher, you win. That kind of
and it's
stuff.
rules light.
Very rules light.
Like we're talking the entire rule book, because we counted it out. The rule book itself, 71 pages total.
Yes, 71 pages. That also includes lore and
So
world
like
building.
the classes and stuff. Yeah, like there's
Yeah.
a lot in those 71 pages.
The actual rules, I think you can name them off two hands. Like,
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's something about that I appreciate. Like I appreciate the fact that you're not going to be like studying this book for weeks. You can decide in a night, let's play this game. Here's the book. Let's create our characters and run through it. And now we're playing. And you're doing it within like an hour.
yeah.
Right? Like we ran up our sample characters and we did that. And we came in fresh. What? An hour and a half at the most, and we were playing.
Yeah. So an hour and a half, we rolled up characters according to the book, and we had a enemy encounter in that as well.
That's right. Yes. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about the simplicity of it that I like, but maybe we're jumping a little bit too far ahead. So I see we got in the notes here that the game was created by, now I'm going to mess this up.
Yes.
And
Go.
And I apologize in advance, but Pelle, is it Pelle or Pelle?
Pelle, I think.
Pelle Nilsson?
Yeah.
And Johan or Johan, probably Johan. Nohr.
Yeah.
In 2020, these guys are like, let's make this game, and it's gonna have this heavy metal dark experience to it.
Yes. So these two guys made this, and it was originally on Kickstarter in 2017, I believe. and after it went through Kickstarter, it took a few years, as Kickstarters do, to come into full print. And boy, howdy.
What a beautiful book.
It is stunning.
It is a beautiful book.
I went out and bought the physical copy specifically for the book because it is an absolute work of art.
It's just gorgeous. Yeah. I'm jealous because I can't find that anywhere near me. So I've seen it. I've seen your copy of it. Beautiful book. The title, Mörk Borg, translates roughly to Dark Castle in Swedish.
Yes.
Which kind of encapsulates exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Yes. And in the first page of the book, they actually have listed music that helped.
Oh.
And they list off about 24, and I've gone through and I've listened to some of them, and they are pretty heavy.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little bit later on, but I mean, I read that there's actually like an official Spotify playlist, a free Spotify playlist that is like to get you in the mood. It's probably consisting of those, those songs, those artists that are listed in the book there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Very, very cool.
And the creators of this Mörk Borg also love their community back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything that the community brings forth, some of their supplementary books have been previously like classes that the community has put forth and been like, this is what I made in my homebrew, and they're like, that's actually really cool. Go with it, and hey, here's some money, we're going to publish it.
For sure. And I love that they're just open to the ideas. Like that's just, it's just a mark of like people who made a game to have fun. Like, like their prototype of this game they're playing, and they're like, this is a really fun game. And then it turned into what it turned into, right? And that they're able to sell the book and other people play it and they enjoy it. And the fact that it's rules light, I think, is what lends itself to being able to be that way.
It really makes it easy to pick up, sit down, play, and just have fun with, because with it being rules light, it encourages the GM to make calls as the game goes.
Exactly.
There's no rules for fall damage. There's no rules for holding your breath. It's
you kind of just roll with it.
Yeah. It's steeped in reality more than anything, right?
I love the theme. I love the book. I love the concept of it. Let's kind of jump into the guts of the system. I have this one line that I pulled out from another website as I was like looking up some of the stuff for rules, and so it sets the stage by basically saying, you are all lost souls seeking redemption or riches in a rapidly decaying world. And I was just like, love it. Like that is just so good.
That is
so good.
So the setting of Mörk Borg is a dying world, where prophecies are coming true and the apocalypse is coming. And so the whole premise of this game, if you want to call it that, is to survive to the apocalypse and burn the book after the apocalypse because you're done.
Yeah. It's basically the end of the world has arrived.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
GG's, high fives, everyone. It literally tells you to burn the book.
It does. It says when the seventh misery has been read, the game's over, burn the book.
Yeah.
So
game over.
Okay, perfect. The book's only good for one playthrough, so
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we're not recommending you burn your book.
No.
But that's what it says. So you kind of go with it.
I have a feeling they put it in there just to see how many people would.
There's so many things in that book. The ones like you can roll a D2 D2 or throw a knife at this page or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Like there's just so many things that are just like it's just the theme of everything is just so good, and it's very vibrant and bright, and I love it. Mörk Borg being another D20 system, how is this? I mean, we talked rules light, we talked about it being a smaller book. How is this different from the other? We've now talked about Dungeons and Dragons, we talked about Pathfinder. This is where we came to for episode 3.
So
how are we different now?
Mörk Borg is it's a standalone game. There's no, there are supplementary books now, but you don't need any of them.
Right.
You don't need, there's no GM book, there's no
GM
player's
guide.
book, there's no
monster
manual. No, it is all in the 71 pages that the book has.
It's insane, and they rely entirely on these random tables to do everything.
Tables, and more tables. If you have a question, there's a table for that. Like it's insane. This book it's taken all of the thinking out of it. Like you can generate a character in, if you've done it enough times, probably 5 minutes, you're back up and playing the game. And we'll get into that because it is a very brutal game. So D&D is pretty soft.
D&D is designed around making your character a hero.
That's right. So is Pathfinder to a point. It's slightly more brutal than D&D. Now we've swung all the way over to the complete opposite side of the spectrum here, where if you don't come to the table with 4 or 5 characters, you're going to be rolling them at the table.
The players are basically inside a gumball machine is essentially how this game works.
Yeah. Because the abilities, you got 4 abilities. You've got your agility, your strength, your presence, which is like your
investigation,
awareness,
persuasion, all of those skills.
It's used for ranged combat, which is odd, but
that's an interesting choice. But I see how it doesn't really fit in the others. So I mean, I get it. And you can tie in presence with vision. Yeah. And now range makes sense.
Yeah. And then you have toughness, which is how strong, and not how strong you are, how many hits you can take.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you roll up a character, you figure out your HP by rolling toughness plus D8 with a minimum of 1 HP.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You have to be alive. So
you have to be alive. Your ability scores, you roll your 3d6, or if you are playing a quote unquote adventurer, which is a classless person.
They've got a couple classes. Or you have the classes, and then you have the classless.
Yes. If you're rolling a classless, it's 4d6 drop 1.
For the first two.
For the first 2, and then 3d6 for the other 2.
Correct.
So,
which is still really rough. Like that is still very, very rough. Like they in my character, when I rolled them, I had a -1 on strength, and I had pretty much zeros across the board for everything else. I don't know if I even had a plus modifier.
Yeah, well, abilities. to get a plus modifier, you need to hit a 13.
It's rough.
So your ability modifiers can go anywhere from a -3 to a +3, and anywhere in between. But that is the extremes. That it doesn't go higher than +3, it doesn't go lower than -3. So that gets added to your D20 roll when you make a check. So that, again, this is where the rules light comes in. You roll and you add a single modifier. You don't change anything else. You don't add, there's no circumstance bonuses. There's no nothings.
Attributes aren't really a thing either. Sorry, attribute scores aren't really a thing. We're modifiers only here.
Once you roll your scores for your player, you basically take the modifier that the table says is, and you plop that in and throw the rest out, and ta-da.
You just work off modifiers from that point forward. And I love that. I gotta say, I don't like Dungeons and Dragons still uses ability scores. And I get it. They've been around since day one. But at a certain point, you're gonna have to pull the plug because you don't typically use your ability score for things. You use the modifier for things. And rather than just doing the math and translating it into the modifier, going straight for the modifier just feels right. It just feels good and simple. It just simplifies the sheet. I love it.
D&D does the ability score because certain items give you a +1 to that ability, right?
Sure.
And that could tip you over to the next ability modifier.
It would be tough for D&D to get rid of it, but I think once they did, they'd be better off for it. Because this game in Mörk Borg, the fact that you dump out those ability scores and forget about them, and you literally just work with the modifiers, it just makes things so much easier. There's no math involved with anything. I don't have to figure out my modifier at all. It's just, that's what it is. And now that I've got my modifier, it's just going to go up or down. That's it.
When you sit down with a paper character sheet in front of you, it's the modifier is right down the center, and that's all you need. It's
simple.
The character sheet, I think, is like half a page.
Yeah.
If you printed it portrait, I'm pretty sure it's half a page. So you could get 2 character sheets out of it. But that being said, you're rolling against DR, which is difficulty rating. And the typical difficulty rating of an average check is about 12. And
usually I saw 12 pretty much across the board.
Yeah. The GM can modify that, easier being
based
a
on
10.
Circumstances, of course. And there's a table to tell you about the difficulty.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to buy, or you want to find a weapon on the ground, you roll on table. You want to figure out what bone you broke, roll on table. I mean, it's simplified. It's boiled down to the essentials and gets you playing fast. And that's what's amazing about it. It is. It's
designed to get you quickly into the game. And I think because of that, this would make a great game to introduce people into the hobby, as long as they share this style of like this theme. You know what I mean? Because with it being as harsh as it is, I feel like it would be more fun. See, that's the thing. People are like, "Oh, I don't want my character to die." And for me, I'm oftentimes like, you know what? I want this character to die. I want to refresh this a little bit. I want to try something new, right? So I don't mind that. But I guess your mileage may vary in that regard.
I am in the same boat as you. I prefer my characters to be short-lived and go out in a blaze of glory and have a new one come in, because boy howdy do I have a list.
Give me that moment where he's like, ah!
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of here, I'll save you all. Right?
And that kind of plays into how expendable your character can be in Mörk Borg, because you're generating off of tables.
Exactly.
So when you create a character, you roll your ability scores. Okay, that's about the only rolling you do. The rest of it is roll on this table, roll on that table, roll on this table, roll on that table. Ta-da!
And you're done, right? Like, I mean, it's basically you're your character. You're nobody important. You are a random guy or gal, right?
Yeah.
Roll to determine what kind of bag you have, if you have one.
Possibly a donkey.
Possibly a donkey, possibly nothing. Roll to determine what items you have, what 2 items you have. Roll to determine how much money you've got. You've got a water skin, and then you roll to determine how much food you have. I'm literally, let's just run this character right down. Then you're going to roll a d10 for the weapon. Then you're going to roll a d4 for your armor. Like, there you go. There's your character.
And
just like that.
If you are lucky enough to roll a scroll, which is the magic in this game, you go to the scrolls table and you roll
on that too.
D12 or something for the scroll that you get.
It's so satisfying to be able to just pick up a handful of dice, throw it, and get a character out of that. Like, I love that concept. That is just so cool.
It also takes the personalizing out of it, which your character is just stats from a table.
Just a character. Yep.
So you didn't invest any time into this person, which is
for sure
because they're going to die. If you're playing this game right, they will die.
That's part of the fun.
It is.
So if we were to jump into combat, so we talked about character creation, we talked about kind of that piece. Jumping into combat, I think the initiative concept that they've come up with, it kind of riffs a little bit on like old school rules of initiative, where you would roll to determine who goes first, but they kind of spice it up themselves a little bit with a d6 having 1 to 3 the monsters go first, 4 to 6 the players go first, or giving each person the ability to basically roll a d6 plus their agility modifier, and whoever has the highest score goes first.
Yeah.
Or mixing that up and kind of doing whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah. And that does actually come from the I think they call this the OSR, the old school revival or something like that. That it beckons way back to like first and second edition of D&D.
Like the BX rule set for the OG Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah.
Utilized an initiative system kind of like this. They also utilized the morale system, which is also present in here as well.
Yeah. Because
what is it? The morale starts at DR12. Well, I guess it depends on the
it depends
enemy.
on
enemy
it depends on the enemy.
Morale score.
Yeah.
And then you roll based on that morale score, and it's meet or beat. Pretty much everything is meet or beat to succeed. With
D20 systems, it's meet or beat. Very rarely have I seen a D20 system that is a meet and fail.
That's right. Very rarely. Yeah, very rarely. It does happen, but not often.
It does. The other thing that is really cool is that so when you roll an attack, it's your D20 plus agility for melee combat, or
strength. So there's a melee test that is strength.
Okay.
And then the range test, that's presence.
Presence, yes. So you do those attacks, and if they hit, the enemy takes the damage from that. And if they are wearing armor, the armor doesn't actually make you harder to hit.
That's right.
Like
it just lessens the blow.
And because we've only talked about D&D and Pathfinder. In D&D and Pathfinder, your armor gives you an AC boost, which makes it harder for you to be hit. In this game, you're going to get hit.
Yep.
But armor will reduce the damage coming in. So you can get hit with a femur, say, which is one of the weapons.
It's a sweet weapon.
Yeah. And I think it does like a D6 damage or something like that.
You roll a D10 to determine the weapon. One of them's a femur. One of them's a like great sword.
Yeah.
Like a freaking Zweihander.
Yeah. But if you roll your D6 damage and the enemy has he's wearing heavy armor that's got a D4 reduction on damage coming in. If you roll 4 and they roll 4, they don't take any damage.
That's right.
You struck them, but their armor held.
It absorbed.
Which really plays the narrative nicely. I always have trouble DMing D&D and Pathfinder because, well, you swing and your sword doesn't hit the AC, so you miss.
Right. Yeah, and it's on the DM to kind of determine how that miss happens.
It's
right?
on the DM to flavor it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm never quick enough to say, yeah, it hits and it bounces off their shield.
It's tough too. And I mean, circumstances are relevant in regards to that, but it's tough sometimes. I like the concept that it is a hit. The other thing that is super cool is that the enemy doesn't make an attack roll against you. The player is rolling the dice.
Yeah.
The whole time.
So that gives huge player agency because it's not DM or GM against the players anymore. If your character dies, it's because you rolled the damage or you failed the defense on it. No, it's not my fault.
Yeah, you're the one throwing the dice, right? So I mean, and it's just, that is just so cool, right? So it's like spoke about the melee and the ranged. The defense test is an agility test.
Yes.
DR 12. And there's possibility that it could be modified depending on scenarios. If you fail that, you get hit, and then you roll the damage and you take the damage. Like, you're the person who's rolling all the time. The GM's not actually rolling the dice, which could theoretically be a negative if you're somebody who fudges the numbers right behind the screen. If you're a DM that's constantly fudging the numbers, I don't know how you could do that in this game. So right, I think it's impossible.
This game, I could be wrong, but I don't think it has an official DM screen. I think
nor should it.
I think everything.
There's no reason to.
Everything is rolled out in the open because who cares if you kill a character?
Exactly. Now, I'm not saying I fudge the numbers, but if you're that type of person,
yeah,
that's something you should be aware of.
Getting back to morale rolls, if a creature were to fall below half health, say, the GM could roll on their morale and see if they actually flee combat. And speaking of combat, there's no movement in Mörk Borg.
Right.
It is, the rulebook says your movement per round is enough to move across an average sized room. Yep. However big that is. And
your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
It's dependent on scenario,
yes.
Right? And there's a lot of liberties I think that are taken in that in the pure drive to make sure that you are not getting stuck on tiny little itsy bitsy rules.
Yes, and it's the itsy bitsy rules that really bog down gameplay. It's the rules lawyer that's always sitting there looking up the rule. And
well, on page 278, it says that you can't move diagonally in this room.
Yeah, exactly. But Mörk Borg doesn't lend itself to grid combat very well.
No,
it's more of a theater of the mind.
Your theater of the mind in here, yeah.
Because you want to be in melee, okay, you're in melee. You don't have 30 feet of movement. You have whatever it takes to get to the bad guy. Not a big deal.
The rule system basically leans into the concept of being without a game. And it's not to say you couldn't do it. I mean, you could absolutely do it. It's just you would have to be making like table rules like you're this type of character. If you're average character, you move this far. If you're whatever the various classes, maybe there's a bonus, whatever your agility, you could tie it in like that. You're still in control of all the rules. You can do what you want with it. But I mean, the concept of the game is to be as light as possible. And so the more rules that you tie into it, the more bogged down it's going to get. And then you'll start to lose some of that kind of shine, I think, on it. So
yeah, and
take it as you would.
Yes, exactly. So when you roll your dice for your attack and you roll a nat 20,
when it happens, the odd time it happens,
yes. When you roll an attack and you roll a nat 20, your attack damage is doubled for that attack. When you roll a nat 20 for defense, you get
a free attack against the enemy.
Yes, you get a free attack against the enemy.
Yeah, and on a nat 20 attack too, something so it's double damage, but you also will reduce whatever you're hitting's armor rating by 1.
That's right. Yes, you
so
slash.
If they're in armor 3, you hit them so hard that you've damaged their armor and reduced it to armor 2 now.
Yeah, you damage their armor, and armor and weapons can break in this game, and that's what I really like about this too.
Yeah. Yeah, durability is a thing.
Yeah, so if you roll nat 1 on attack, your weapon can be dropped or lost or broken.
Yep.
If you roll nat 1 when you are defending, you take double damage because it's fair.
It's fair. The monsters also get the same thing.
You guys are all playing the same game, so you get double damage and you get your armor reduced to 1.
That's right.
If armor gets reduced below tier 1, it's broken. It's gone. You're running around your skin suit on. That's about it.
Something that I wish they would have done here. I like the concept of weapon broken or lost. I like that concept. But I wish that they would have made it mirror copies. So nat 20 double damage, armor reduced by 1 is the same as the nat 1 defense. Nat 1 attack, nat 1 defense, the same. But nat 1 defense gives the player an extra attack. I would have liked to see the enemy get a second attack instead of breaking or losing the weapon, right?
Yeah.
Because the weapon broken in this game, you might as well just be dead, because you're going to have a really rough go. If you're down in the middle of something and you just lost your weapon, you're going to have a rough time from this point forward. You can make a makeshift weapon. You can start punching, but it's a poor substitute for a weapon.
And I would argue that if that monster gets a free attack on you,
yep,
you're dead anyway.
But that's I would rather be dead than lose my weapon, I guess is what I'm saying. Right? I would rather have it take me out than lose. I like the concept of weapon broken, weapon lost. I do like that concept. So I mean, it's not like we're saying one's better, one's worse. All I'm saying is that it would have been nice if it was a trigger. If it was like if the GM can make a decision. Either I get a second attack or you're going to take some weapon durability.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah.
Depending on scenario, right?
I would say the next round you'd be dead anyway.
Yeah.
You're just prolonging the inevitable.
You're just prolonging it a little bit, right? I'd rather just take me out now. Let me re-roll.
So speaking of re-rolling, in this game they have what are called omens.
Yes, that's this game's version of the inspiration system.
It is. And when you roll up a new character, you roll for how many omens you get. And they're recharged on a long rest, quote unquote long rest, which is any rest in this game. You can use this omen to deal max damage on one attack. You can use it to re-roll a dice roll, either yours or someone else's. You can lower damage dealt to you by 1d6, or you can neutralize a crit and fumble. So if you roll a nat 1, you can use an omen to say no. That was a
no, it's
2.
not. It's not a nat 1.
That was a 2.
Yeah.
It wasn't a 1.
Yeah. The other thing the omens can do is they can also lower the DR by 4 if you should choose.
Yes, they do.
That's also an option with your omen too.
It's arguably the least likely to be used.
Yeah,
omen.
I don't know why you would want to do that. Like, I get it, but you don't know what the DR is, so you could use yours and reduce it by 4, but it might be still out of reach. I think you would be better off saving it to re-roll your dice roll rather than to use the minus D4. But I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
I think the way this game is designed and balanced, I don't think anything's ever out of reach.
No, I mean, there's things on that table where it's like, this is an impossible thing to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but then again, I guess you as a player, you would know that this is an impossible thing to do. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like a situation where I'd be like, I don't know if I would take -4 of that DR off.
It also depends on the table. Some GMs will call out the DR when they get you to roll against it, right?
That's a good point.
Because that just makes life a lot faster for everyone.
For sure.
Speaking of life.
Yeah, how about growth?
Yeah.
How about growth? Character growth.
Character growth is really done really neat in Mörk Borg. There's no experience. There's no experience. There's no real level ups unless the GM says, hey, you guys have been here long enough, it's time to level up.
The GM makes that call.
Exactly.
You do something really awesome, hey, you're going to level up now.
Or if the GM wants to be particular and then asks you, you'll be stuck at level 1 for the rest of your very short life. So when you level up, your HP goes up. I believe you roll 2d6 or something, 60-10.
Yeah, so you roll 60-10 when you level up.
Yes.
And then if that number is greater than your current HP, you get to increase your HP by 1d6. And then after you deal with your HP, you do the same thing for your modifiers using a 1d6. So your modifier for strength is a 3. You roll 1d6 and you get a 2. You will lose 1 strength and go from 3 to 2.
That's so metal.
And it's a grid, right? So if you roll higher than your modifier, you will get +1. If you roll lower than your modifier, you will get -1. So I mean, if you are -3 across the board, level ups is how you will get yourself out of -3 if you manage to survive long enough to get to a level.
With -3s across the board, oh boy.
You're not going to survive, but that is a way that you would increase those. Consequently, if you're all 3s, the percentage chance of you going down to a 2 is very high. So that is also something as well.
I found it really neat when you level up, your stats can actually go down, and that is so gnarly. Like,
it's so cool until it happens to you, and then it breaks you so bad that you can't wear your armor anymore or something like that. I don't know. It's such a cool system though. I do enjoy that.
It is.
Keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Magic in this game is handled with scrolls. So we mentioned about the scrolls earlier. So these are things you could have got these when you generate your character. You could have pulled a scroll from the list, from the D12 list. Yes, and the scrolls are how Mörk Borg handles magic. So at the beginning, you roll presence plus D4, and that's how many times you can cast a spell per day. And there's two kinds of scrolls. There's unclean scrolls and sacred scrolls. As far as I can tell, the sacred scrolls are the kind of healy, buffy ones.
Buffs and heals.
The unclean scrolls are
damage and debuffs.
Yeah. But the magic in Mörk Borg isn't just like you heal. Here's a fireball, magic missile, lightning bolt. No, it's your skeleton walks out of your body and goes to hug the nearest thing, right? It's just straight out of a horror movie.
It's just so good. And not only that, but casting magic is hard. You're just an everyday normal dude, right? So it is not a simple task to one does not simply cast magic in Mörk Borg. You need to make a presence test check versus DR12. So if you happen to have pulled one of these scrolls and you tank your presence roll, you need to beat a 12 on a D20 plus presence mod check in order to just cast the spell.
Yep.
And consequently,
if you fail it, you become dizzy and unable to cast spells.
That's right. You're always going to fail a power check at that point forward. So it is insane. It is absolutely insane. The spells are good. The spells are very, very good. So it is worth taking that chance. But the fact that you will become dizzy for 1 hour and lose the ability to make power checks is just like, right? Like, it's debilitating.
And
so you better hope that you've got some backup, because you're gonna have a rough go.
I believe if you roll a nat 1 on that roll, you roll on the arcane catastrophe table, which
Yep.
there are in
Page 44.
Yeah, page 44 and 45 is this D20 table. And when you roll a nat 1 on your presence check to see if you can cast a spell, you roll on this table, which certain parts of the text are what gets read to the player. And then certain parts are ones that the GM knows what is going on with the player. So I'll give an example here. On first one is, 1 by 1 your teeth fall out. Long brittle fingernails replace them in your gums. And then the GM knows your smile is horrific and you find it hard to eat.
And guess what happens when you don't get food and water?
That is the only way to recover HP, is to eat.
Yeah, because if you don't have food and drink, you will get nothing. And after 2 days of not having food and drink, you're going to start losing 1d4 HP every single day until you get some. And when you only have 3 HP,
you literally starve to death.
Literally starve to death.
It's so...
Yeah. Resting only works if you have food and water. That's how you rest.
Yes.
So without food, not water, food and drink. Something to drink, something to eat.
Yeah.
If you don't have food and drink, you will gain no HP on a rest. So the inability to eat is a huge problem. That's not going to end well for Mr. Fingernail Mouth.
Exactly. So talking about falling to 0 HP.
Yeah, we've been talking about like how your characters are going to die a lot. Maybe we should talk about how death works in the game.
Yeah. So with death, when your HP rolls down to 0 HP, you are considered broken. And you roll on the broken table.
Which, that's on page 40.
Yes. And you get like, your hand needs to be replaced with a hook or something like that. And you are unconscious, you're bleeding out, you're not dead yet.
You can be.
You can.
If you roll poorly on that table, you can be dead.
Yes. There's one that says flat out you're dead. Then if your HP rolls below 0 to a negative number, you're dead. There's no pass go, collect $200. There's none of that. You are dead. Gone. Rip up the character sheet. Take your sheet, throw it over your shoulder or burn it, and grab your next one out of your folio, because you should have at least 1 or 2 left.
It's a very clean system. I like that. Something that really bothers me with Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinders is that when you die, it just takes forever. You have to roll on the death saving throws and death saving throws and the death saving throws and the death saving throws. And I get it. People don't want to lose their characters. I understand, but there's just something cathartic about, like, your character went down. He now has no arm. He got his arm chopped off and he went down. And now, from this point forward, if you take more damage, you're done. You're super done. If your party has to now kind of go, do we kill the monster or do we save our friend, kind of thing? Or our friend is bleeding out, they're going to be super dead in one more round. We got to figure out how to do this while dealing with this other problem. I think it just puts more pressure on that situation and makes for a better encounter. Otherwise, what ends up happening in D&D or Pathfinder is, they got 3 rounds. They'll be fine.
That's metagaming, and
but it happens. Don't tell me it doesn't happen.
No, it always does.
You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, nah, we don't have to deal with that right now. He might make his save. she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Let's deal with this problem first. And in this case here, it's like, if we don't deal with this right now, we're going to have to pick left or right. This is a problem.
And then you look at the guy next to you and say, sorry, buddy.
Sorry, pal. Here, let me get that for you.
Yeah. And again, that's what I love about this too, is that it's brutal to the point of hilarity that, and again, the way the character is generated, you don't have any personal connections to this character. So what are you losing, really?
Truly. I mean, if you manage to stay alive long enough, you would gain that kind of connection with it. But I think going into the game, it's really hammered into you. Like, these characters are temporary, don't get attached. And I feel like that would take a little bit of that, like, burn off a little bit.
Yeah. And I would hope that any GM sitting down trying to pose this to their friends, to their gaming group, would say, this is Mörk Borg. You need more than one character because there is a very, 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 very good chance he will die.
What was that? You want to play 3 hours of a tabletop RPG? Perfect. Let's play this one.
And that's, Mörk Borg lends itself really well to single one shot, a few sessions long.
Pull it off the shelf and
just
sit down the table.
Sit down and play. It doesn't lend itself very well to a long, drawn-out campaign because you have so many characters swapping in and out all the time, unless you were doing like a company of heroes or something, or a company of vagabonds going down the road from one to the next, and then you had a pool to draw from as you kept going. But as far as a 2-year-long campaign, I can't see it. There's no way.
No, it's just not in the cards, right? And that is ultimately right. The biggest pro for me for this game is that exact thing. I see this game in two lights. And by the way, there's Pirate Borg, which is on the same game system, just with different flavoring. It is the pirate version of this game, which I gotta say, I am in love with that game. And that is one that I definitely want to play, right? Because it's the same kind of idea, rules light, etc., etc., etc. It's just, instead of a heavy metal theme, it is a pirate theme. And you could take this exact same thing. You could take this little bundle of rules and apply a fantasy setting to it like that. And you would have Fantasy Borg, or whatever it is you want to call it, right? Like, it's so easy. And I look at that set of rules and I go, that's how I can get somebody into playing a game like this and learning how the D20 system works without really having to teach them anything. I have introduced people to Dungeons and Dragons, and I take that player's handbook and I'm like, thump. This is how you learn how to play the game. And they look at it and they go, this thing's 400 pages long. And I'm like, yep.
That's a lot of reading, boss.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. And I mean, and that in I think it's worth its weight in gold, right? You use these ultralight systems to, one, just have a fun night with some friends, or two, introduce people to how to play these games, and then you go into the big ones. Like you said, I don't think people are doing a year, 2-year, 3-year, 5-year long campaigns of Mörk Borg, but I do think that they're going to play these 1-shots, 2-shot, 3-shot type of situations, right?
There's also Cyborg, which is the cyberpunk version.
Sci-fi one.
Yeah, and I think the fantasy one is called Orc Borg.
There you go. I was like, there's got to be one, right?
Yeah. But yeah,
Borg, that's good.
That's good. Isn't it?
That's way better than Fantasy Borg, I got to tell you. Somebody really thought that one through.
Yeah, and my biggest pro to this is the ease of which, like you said, one can get into it. There's hardly any reading to it because it's all tables. You roll on a table for this, you roll on a table for armor, you just roll for it.
It takes all of the anxiety about like, did I pick the right character out of the equation.
Yeah.
A lot of people when I talk to them about Dungeons and Dragons, they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a sorcerer or a warlock or a wizard. I can't really, what's the difference between all of these ones? And this game just like throws that book to the side and is like, here, roll this dice. That's how your character's going to be built. Let's go. And then that's it. It's just on you go from there. You don't like this character? Don't worry. There's another one coming around the bend. You can try something else.
I will say that the classes are optional.
Yeah.
And
they're cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I classes are cool, but I like the random guy.
I like Joe Blow from the potato field.
I like the guy who picks up the femur and just starts walking.
At the back of the book, there are a set of tables for the GM to roll up a dungeon.
Ooh, right. Okay.
And you just roll up, what is it called? You roll 2d12, and you get stuff like the Doom Ziggurat or the Torture Fort or stuff like Slave Church. Like
Torture Fort sounds awful.
And then you got the D6 for the status if it's active or inactive. And then the imminent danger. Stuff like a terrible dormant curse is about to be unleashed on the planet. And then you swap to, well, who or what dwells there now?
Right.
And you go like a meaty mass of slime, larva, and spider legs is the big boss at the bottom.
I love the concept of random generation for all this stuff.
It's so
it takes
easy.
and it allows you to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
Right? Especially with this game, right? Like it's set up in a way to allow you to do this, pull it off the shelf, sit down, play the game. Obviously there's got to be a little bit of planning involved, but not nearly to the caliber of these other tabletops. Like you literally can do this on the fly. The players are currently across the table from you arguing about who's going to pick that piece of treasure up. You're over here rolling your D12s and going, this is the monster. This is where they're walking to. This is what's going on.
With Mörk Borg, you don't need a story. You and 5-6 other friends can sit down, delve a dungeon, die, and have fun doing it. If you come into this game and you with the open mindset of I'm here to roll dice and have fun, you will have
You're
fun.
gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and the antics that can come across all of it is just mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And that leads me into what I think is my biggest con with the game is this is the same as the Pro. Since it's such a small system, it doesn't lend itself very well for longevity. So you're going to play this game for a week, a month, a couple months, and then it's going to go onto the shelf and you'll do something else kind of thing, right? Because the way that it's designed is for these quick shot, like getting these things done like that, right? You're going to move on from this system into Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or one of these other systems that is going to be the overarching story, right? Because you're likely not a group that just wants to dungeon delve and dungeon delve and dungeon delve with no real purpose in mind. You're going to want that overarching storyline to kind of bring you into it, right?
Yeah. And you can put
not to say you couldn't do it, but it's just the system. It's not designed that way, right?
It's like, not.
Light on the story. That's how it's designed to be, very light.
So I agree. You would shelf it, and then when your D&D group gets, say, a little burnt out from D&D, or you guys got a short break coming up.
Gonna burn a little rage out the system.
There's Mörk Borg. Let's burn through a few characters.
Ready to go. 100%. And I say it as I don't mean it as a con, like it's a knock against it. It's the way it's designed, right? Like it's not a bad thing. It's just, if you were to pick one game, that's something that you should be aware of, is that this system is not designed for those super omega campaigns. This system is for grab and go.
Yeah, like I said, it does not lend itself to long campaigns, and it's not meant to.
No.
And I don't think it was ever designed for that.
No, it definitely was not designed that way. No.
My only con is that sometimes, and this is because I can't read, sometimes the text is super hard to read in this gorgeous book.
The book is artistic. It is not incredibly functional. In fact, they released another version of the book, or an online version of the book, right?
Online you can get right off the Mörk Borg site. You can get the bare bones.
The legible version.
So it's a plain text PDF document of everything in here.
Yeah. It's got the guts of it. It takes all of the frills. Buy the book. Do yourself the favor and buy the book, because it is an absolute gorgeous piece of art. But you might want to have a copy of that PDF just to check rules every now and then to make sure, because it is a little bit tough to go page to page to page to page, because they fit a lot of like flavor text in between, and you can't really tell what is and isn't rules without literally like studying the page a bit.
Not even that, it's the fonts that they chose. Some of those fonts,
like old-timey English.
90% of the black metal bands out there, I can't tell you who's who because I can't read their logo. It was a design choice because it was inspired by the metal of Sweden. So
it is incredibly artistic, and it is a gorgeous book. But I agree with you on that one there. It can be a little bit tough. It's one of those things where I think you could pull it off the shelf and show it to someone and they'd be like, whoa, this is great. What is it?
I still do that every other night. I just grab it off my shelf and I just drool over it.
Look at it.
It's so
it's
cool.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful book. There was a couple other things. I mean, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but I did put in here because of the tables. The system lends itself very well to generator systems, and people have stood up generator systems for your character generators, monster generators, dungeon generators, and they take the work out of it. They just use random numbers for the dice rolling, and they input the table, and boom, there you go. You don't even have to roll the dice. You can literally just go to a website,
one
click a button,
single click,
there it is.
And a second and a half later, you have your results.
And you're done, right?
As far as I can tell, that is all endorsed by the devs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if not created by them, but like actually hosted in their space, because I think the character generator was actually on their website, if I'm not mistaken.
It might be, yeah.
I think it was. I might not be correct about that. I'd have to check again later. But there's a character generator, monster generator, dungeon generator, and it just pulls the data out of the books and makes your life a little bit easier. I like rolling dice, so I don't know how much I would use the generator, but in a pinch, if you needed a monster like now, there it is, right? Yeah. Bring it up on your phone. Boom, done. Simple, right?
There are also multiple Spotify playlists, one of which is the actual official one.
That official one, yeah, the one we were talking about before, that's just so cool. I love that. You put that on, you create your characters, you get into the zone, and bam, off you go, right?
Yeah.
The only other thing that was listed in here is to once again, don't get attached to your character. That's kind of the overarching message with Mörk Borg is don't get attached to your character. You're gonna lose them. You're gonna make a new one, and there's nothing wrong with that. Variety is the spice of life.
Love your character, but as with all things you love, you must let it go.
You gotta let them go. Unless you got anything else, man, that's kind of it for Mörk Borg. There's some mealy stuff that's in there too. Get the book, check it out. It's 76 pages, man. You can read that in half an hour. It's beautiful, but simple.
Mrs. and I picked it up in the city, and on our way home, we drove 1 hour, and she was reading through it.
There it is.
She read front to back.
Yep.
She had to ask me what a few words were because she couldn't read the text, but
hey, that's fair. That is fair. So, Finn, what do you got on doc here for us for kind of like our closing out discussion here?
I picked dice tonight.
Math rocks.
Yeah,
Clickety clackety math rocks.
The therapeutic click clacks. Yeah.
Yep.
What is your favorite dice? Either the color hues or the material, or just the specific one polyhedral dice that you prefer over all others.
I am awful at answering what is your favorite anything, but I'll give you the best answer I can. So I tend to stick to blues and greens, not because I want to. It's just subconsciously I'm like, ooh, I like that set of dice, and they tend to be blue and green. I've been kind of branching out a little bit because I've recognized that, and I'm like, I need different colors now. So I got red and I got purple, I got all kinds of stuff. If I had to pick a favorite set of dice, I think I would have it narrowed down to two. One of which would be the set that you gave me, those little baby miniature dice.
Yeah.
Because those are just so awesome. I love them. They're, what are they, 6mm dice or something like that? They're just tiny little things.
Itty bitty little guys.
That would be one of them. The other, I would say, if you told me root around in my bag of dice and find my favorite set, I still have the original first dice set that I ever bought for Dungeons and Dragons way back 20 plus years ago. Those are probably my favorite. They roll like crap. Those dice have screwed me more times than any dice that I can count. But just for the sheer fact that I look at those and I remember immediately like all the games of D&D that I've played my entire time through in this hobby, those dice always remind me of it, right? And then I roll the D20 and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I don't roll this one. And I put it back in the pile. I would say those, I don't think I could narrow it down any further than that. I've got some cool ones. I've got like a Dragon's Eye D20. I have a plethora of like stuff. I'm the guy who shows up with a giant bag of dice for the people who are like, I've never played D&D before. I'm like, great, here's your first set of dice. Have a great day. And I just hand you a set of dice and off you go. Because I think dice are the gateway into tabletop RPGs. Everyone likes rolling something shiny, click clackety, and like that first time you roll a nat 20 is such just a feel, like just like a burst of energy that those are the things that I don't think you'll ever forget in this hobby. But anyway, that would be mine.
And people new to the hobby have never rolled anything more than a D6.
A D6, they're like, this is a funny looking dice. And I'm like, well, first off, it's a die. Secondly, there's no pips on these die. There are numbers on these dice.
Me personally, I tend to go towards the purple blue.
Ooh, okay.
That's always been, I've got like 6 sets of blue, purple, blue, that color ratio. And I don't know why. It's like you and your blue and green.
It's the subconscious, man. It's just like your brain goes, I like that one, and you pick it, and you're like, damn it.
I do have these beautiful, they are called lustrous gold and silver, and they're my mini itty bitty ones, and they are beautiful. They're like a coppery, silvery color. Oh,
okay.
Those are nice.
Beautiful.
My favorite set would also be my first set I ever picked up. I picked up I don't even know who makes these Koplau games in the tube.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the 4d6. It's a 10-pack instead of the 7s.
That was my first set too, was a 10-pack.
And I have a purple set, a solid purple with white writing on it, and those are hands down my favorite dice. I always roll them if I'm rolling any. If
you got to make a count, that's the one you pull.
I purposefully dig through my 18 sets of dice just to find them. I will say a runner-up is Mrs. bought me that fidget spinner D20.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
see here, I thought you were gonna say the rubber ducky one. Well, so I was like, I like your rubber ducky set. Those are nice too.
Yeah.
But I forgot about the fidget spinner one. That was
cool that
too.
One's neat.
You got a lot of the cool. I have a lot of basic dice, like a lot of just like the standard. I've got a blue set, a green set, a purple set, a yellow set, right? Like the basics. And then I've got a couple fancy sets that are in there. And then I've been getting gifted sets of dice like crazy over the last couple of years as well, as we've been playing through games and stuff like that. So I try to get people to pick the sets for me instead of the other way around. And that way I don't fall victim to my bias for blue and green.
That's very fair.
Right? Like, and so, but yeah, no, that is, you can never get enough dice. If there's one thing you can take away from this episode, go and buy some dice for yourself. You earned it. You earned that set of dice. Go buy it.
Yeah. If you just need that little push to go get you out, go get it.
Go do it right now. I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode as well. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, listening to this as well, downloading it on your podcatcher of choice, whatever you decided to listen to. You can also find us on Twitch and on YouTube. My channel is at DadGamingOnline on YouTube and DG Online on Twitch. Finny's kicking around the channel these days as well.
Somewhere usually.
You can find them. And then I'll also post a link to the Discord in the description of the podcast. So if you'd like to come and hang out with us outside of this, that is the way that you can do that. Simply just join the Discord and come say hello. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Please
tell
comment,
us if you've played Mörk Borg before. Tell us about some of your games. I did a search on YouTube for like live play of it. There's not a whole lot out there. There is a couple, and it looks like just a blast. So this is definitely one that's on the list. I'm looking forward to giving like a proper run through of.
Yeah. I think once we're done our Pathfinder game, we're gonna switch into different systems.
We're going to have to run some of these ones, especially these ultralights. It'd be fun to swap them in. Right on. Well, take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the next episode, everyone.